Everyone, I hope you're ready for some spooky, scary stories. These are brand new. I'm not reading these from the website. I haven't even wrote these down. I'm freestyling it as if we were sitting around the campfire. And with that being said, let's get with our scary stories. We got three to tell. Hope you enjoy. So our first story is called "The Unlivable Farm," and it it takes place in an Amish town that not many heard of because most haven't really even seen it from the outside. Only those that lived in the town know about the town, basically, unless if they were a lucky traveler crossing by that happened to pass by, which is what happened that made this farm so unlivable. See, one day there was this hurt man. He looked tired, weak, exhausted. He was basically looking like if he kept on walking any farther, he was going to die. And he walked upon a farm in this Amish town and collapsed there in the farm yard. And that's where this little girl and this little boy that were playing outside saw him, and they instantly freaked out because they never really seen modern clothes before, even though it was back in the 1960s. So the clothes weren't that modern, but still, to this town, this guy was. And so the kids ran inside, got their parents. The parents came outside looking pretty confused because they never really heard of this happening or seen this happening before. You see, people know from the town about the outside world from the Amish village, but they barely talk about it. They try to keep it down low. So I guess they could, in a way, forget that there is an outside world to their town. Anyways, the parents got this man help. They took him inside, laid him on the couch, got him some water, and they were being very hospitable to him. And the man who just accepted all the help he could get and just kept saying thank you, thank you, thank you. And finally, when he started looking well enough, they asked him, "What's your name, traveler?" He says his name was Terry. So, as the man regained his strength, he tried to smile a bit, but he didn't really smile. And the parents seemed to not catch this, but the kids sure did. They thought it was a little bit odd that he wasn't able to really smile, especially after getting all that help that he just got. And they realized the guy was actually shot in the leg. So they they called a doctor there, and when the doctor got there, the doctor did not expect to see what happened next. See, as soon as they realized the guy was shot in the leg, uh, the the father was going to go get the doctor, but the wife was like, "No, you can't leave this stranger with our kids, or in our house alone. Let me go get the doctor." And he thought that was a better idea, but he didn't really want to do that. He thought it was best for her to, because she knew more medical stuff than he did. So he thought it was best for her to stay with him. But he let her go. And as he was making some more soup for the stranger, because Stranger asked. Well, my voice, or my throat's pretty harsh still. Do you think you got any more of a soup that they offered him to get well better? So, the father went to the kitchen, started making the soup. The kids were just staring at the man for a while, and then the man's half smile faded away, and then he growled at them. You know it's not polite to stare, right? Freaked out the kids a bit. They were not expecting that at all. Like they were innocent, and I guess that's why they didn't see what was going to happen next. Because as soon as the father walked back into the living room, the man, the stranger, pulled out a revolver from his waist that he had hidden, and he shot the father right away in the chest. Father went down, gasping for air. The kids screaming, crying. The little girl ran to her father, fell to her knees, yelling out, "Why, God, why?" You know. Next thing, the stranger shoots the little girl in the back of the head. Now, the son's watching in fear. He's so scared he can't even move. All he could do is tremble and shake. And then that's when the stranger looked at him with a wider smile than before, a more real smile, but a sadistic and insane smile, and said, "Well, I guess someone should have taught you all. It's not very smart to let strangers in." And that's when he shot the boy. See, the stranger, he was shot in the leg. He was in pain. He was out in the woods for days trying to look for civilization. But as soon as he felt better, he went back to his old ways. The reason why he was running through the woods, running away, is what he was doing, running away from his law enforcement. The wife came back with the doctor, and the wife stood there at the doorway looking at all the dead bodies, and the stranger gone. And the wife ran inside crying, just fell to her knees in the middle of all her dead family, screaming, crying. And then the doctor's trying to get her out of there. Come on, you gotta go get help now. The doctor couldn't really finish his sentence or even go and help her, drag her out of the house, because as soon as he said that, the stranger came around the corner and shot the doctor right in the head, side temple. The wife saw this too. She was looking at the doctor for a bit in her blurry, crying eyes, and all she saw was him just fell right over to the side. And that's when the stranger came back in the door frame, and she just started screaming, "How could you do this to my family? How could you?" And then he looked at her and said, "How come you didn't let me die?" And that's when he shut the door. And just screams. But the thing about this Amish town is these houses were kind of spread apart. So people didn't hear the screaming. Heck, people didn't even see the dead doctor. The doctor went alone to the house. So the stranger was able to kill a family, kill a doctor, hide the remains in the house, and then he stayed out there in the barn. And everyone that came to the house to check on them, he got. Eventually the whole town started realizing, okay, this is no coincidence, alright? Every time we send someone out to this house, they're not coming back. So they all went out to the house. pitchforks. And around this time, the stranger was out of bullets. There was one rifle in the house, though, but he knew that wouldn't protect him against two people at one time, unless they're two weak people. Well, with that in mind, he took his chances. He took his chances. So he grabbed the rifle and had one bullet left in the revolver. And at this time, there was around 12 bodies in the house. Some kids that were playing by the house he got. Some people that were concerned and checked on the family that were close friends with them he got. And the family themselves and the doctor. Eventually it started racking up the 12 bodies. The house was unbearable to even go by because you would smell death in the air of rotting corpses. And if you would go inside, it would be such an unpleasant sight. So I'm telling what most normal people would do to it. For the stranger, it was his home. And that was his new graveyard. So, around 15 of the townsmen that went to his house, all with pitchforks, rifles, they're ready to go. And the stranger in the barn, he's watching this, he's seeing it's around midday, so he's seeing the glow from far away from all the pitchforks and stuff. He knows what's about to happen. He knows in the stories that he's about to become the Frankenstein of this town. And so the people finally got to the house. They checked it, screaming, some puking. They couldn't handle it. They had to go back, but still, there was still a lot of people left. They wanted to catch the guy that done it. They wanted to stop him. And that's when they realized that there was a lot of lights on in the barn. And that was not normal for the Amish community. So they knew exactly where he was hiding. They all marched in the barn, looking around, and then it wasn't to be found. But you could tell that someone was staying there because the hay was made into a bed. There's a dead body in there. You could tell someone was in there. And then that's when they heard the creaking above them on the second floor of the barn. He was hiding, waiting for anyone to climb up the ladder. What he didn't count on was them to start shooting up through the floorboard at him without even asking any questions or wanting to see who done it. They just want revenge. So that's what they did. They started shooting up through the floorboard, bullets flying all around him. And he knows one of these bullets are eventually going to hit him. It's going to hit him in a bad spot or hit him in an instant kill spot. Either way, he didn't want to give them the satisfaction. So he stood at the ladder, pointed the revolver as under his chin with his last bullet, and pulled the trigger. Fell backwards, and everyone watched as he committed suicide. Now, here's the thing to the story. You would think it would end there, right? It doesn't though. Because afterwards, it's like that farm had a curse on it. People tried to move in it decades later because, of course, after all that gruesome thing that happened there, no one wanted to live in that farm. Of course, right away they thought about tearing it down, burning it down even. But they kept it up for a while because it was still a nice home. And back then, tragedy struck, and when it did struck, it struck hard. So it was almost sort of normal for back then. Anyways, They realized every family that moved in there decades later, bad things would happen to. They would meet fatal ends to it. And finally, they tore down the home, replaced it with a big farm. And all the animals on that farm just kept dying. All the food they get and milk from that farm, eggs, all spoiled. They couldn't understand why it was happening other than of because of what happened on that land. It was so bad that they had to actually move towns because it became so bad that even people that walked on the land became cursed and brought it back to their house or wherever they went to, and it still got them just by walking on it, the property. When they moved from a different location to a complete different location, moving their whole town out, that's how come we know the story. That's how it got out. Because we finally found out about the town, the Amish town. And, well, that story followed them. Because they wanted to warn people, in case if they were ever in the area, don't go to that farm, or where that farm was the one standing. Because whatever's there, it'll still get you. Wow, that was the story Unlivable Farm. How do you all like that one? And that was just the first story. I know I tried to go pretty hard with it. I hope it was enjoyable. We still got two more stories to go. And with the first story being told, I want you all to know that these stories are all in the same genre, where it fits places that, we don't really get to hear about. Keep that in mind. These are areas that where most people just don't really know about. This next story is called Breather. So, I like to explore. There is nothing wrong with that. I explore many places, places that most people would imagine me not wanting to explore. For example, I'm an American man, and I explored Iraq one time. You know, most people would imagine I would be too scared to do that, or I guess they imagine for themselves they'd be too scared. Well, I mean, I even climbed Mount Everest, and that still didn't prove to the people that, you know, I'm willing to go anywhere. As long as it seems like a good adventure, I'm on it. So, when I heard about these pyramids, ancient pyramids in the jungles, I had to go there. I had to see it for myself. I've been to a pyramid in the jungle before, okay? But I wanted to see what they were talking about because I couldn't imagine. Somewhere in Africa they found an ancient pyramid in the rainforest jungle. This is the kind of stuff that you read about in mythical books, I think. And that's why I want to go there. And that's what I did. Packed up my stuff and went there. Took my traveling log, my book, to write things down so I can keep in mind or keep memory of my treasures with my camera, lucky camera. If only I knew what was waiting out there. The reason why, you know, I never really thought about it until now, but the reason why those pyramids were hidden for all this time, it wasn't because like it was a discovery. It was probably because they were dangerous, and most people couldn't talk about them because once they found them, well, that was it. They found them and it was game over. Well, that wasn't in my mind at the time, heading to heading to the spot. Now, the spot I'm heading to doesn't have no hotel, motel, not even a one-star place to stay, resort to stay at, an R&B, anything like that, nothing. So I'm gonna have to be camping for this one. And I've camped before, so I'm not really too worried about this. And also, I even camped in the rainforest jungle. But I guess I never camped in this area. Anyways, I got there, set up my tent, ready to go to the trail because where the way to get to this pyramid, it was so unhumane where it was overgrown by leaves and forest and stuff. So what I had to do was set my camp up outside of kind of a far range from the pyramid. But I had it all planned out. See, I can wake up early in the morning, head out to the pyramid, and check it out, take some pictures, whatever, head back, rest back, and if I really liked it, I can do the same thing the next morning. I have enough supplies to do it 3 times. Only one night. Or only one day. I got there, it was midday. I set up my camp, it was getting darker, ate some food, got relaxed, loved the sound of the bugs outside. Bugs are different in different locations. Some are bigger in different locations, so some you can actually hear even louder and stronger. You really have to experience for yourself. One of those kind of things. The glories of one of the glories to exploring and adventure. I lay down in my tent and started to go to sleep. Before I went to sleep though, I could have swore I heard something rustling in the leaves outside or in the bush. And I thought I was going crazy at first, honestly. But then I realized, well, I am in the middle of the jungle. It could really be anything, really. So I try to ignore it, go back to sleep. As I'm falling asleep, though, something catches my eye, and it's the top of my tent. It looks as if there's like a finger being rubbed across the tent, like there's something indenting inside from the outside on the tent, pushing on it with their finger and rubbing it across, back, going down one line, picking it up, and doing it again, slowly. That was weird to see. I thought I was dreaming and it might have been a bug in my dream, I don't know. Either way, I was so tired I fell asleep right after that. And I'm a heavy sleeper, so that's that's the perks about being a heavy sleeper and explorer. You can sleep through anything and be anywhere. Anyways, I woke up the next morning. I realized there was oddly something happened to my outdoor camp around my fire pit. It looked as if there was other people that were messing around it, which I didn't mind the company, but still weird. Because I know that in the rainforest there's not much people living there, and the people that are living there, they're not living near this area. At least it's said on the maps. Anyways, I'm heading out to the pyramid today. It's gonna be great. Getting to see something that most haven't with their eyes. Only probably 50 people see this with their eyes. And there's so many people in this world, it's crazy. I get there, it's kind of a bit of a hike and a walk, but it is so worth it. It's beautiful how it looks walking through the rainforest jungle. You get your shade from the trees, and the bright sunlight that shines in through the little cracks of the trees. It's just so beautiful. And then when you get to the pyramids, the sunlight just opens up. It's like walking into a field, but with a giant pyramid in the middle of it with overgrown grass and stuff like that on it. I instantly went to the bottom of the stairs, took some pictures. Look, I wanted to look all around it, but I figured this is so cool, I'm definitely going to stay and do this one more time tomorrow. And so I just started climbing up it. I said to myself for the first day, I want to see how far I'll go up it. See, I have this little problem with heights. Even though I'm an adventurer, when it comes to heights, heights isn't my strong fall. It's my downfall, like it sounds. So, walking up this big pyramid might be a little bit of a challenge, especially with the crumbling steps. Not crumbling, but broken steps because of the decay over the so long years of rain and people not being around to take care of it. All I could think of while walking up those steps is, I hope more people come out here. I hope they make a resort out here. I hope they fix up this place, make it look nice again. That's when I heard breathing, but not my breathing, even though I was tired from all the walking, but like heavy breathing. And it was coming from it sounded like it was coming from around the corner of the pyramid. And I was only halfway up at this moment. That was so weird. I really wanted to go walk over there and check it out. But no, how could I? That's the most scary part of the pyramid walking, especially when you're scared of heights. Walking there over on the sides because they're not built like the steps. They're built more like for design. They're more rounded edge. But I really wanted, because I got really quiet and I could clearly hear something breathing heavily, like as if there's someone else on the other side, or just where I can't see them, going up the pyramid. I shrugged it off and kept going to the top, going, and I finally made it to the top. I didn't really find anything, but you know, that's how most adventures are. You're mostly out there for the scenery and for the exploring, not to find treasure. So it was just worth it. I realized it was about to start becoming midday, so I decided to turn around and start walking back down. As I did, I kept hearing this breathing. It got louder and louder, and eventually it sounded like it was right behind me. I kept checking though, looking over my shoulder, nothing there. And then I realized the sound was becoming underneath me. I thought that was really weird. As if there's something inside the pyramid now, breathing, or wherever it is. Anyways, it made me pick up my steps, and I started speed walking down them steps. I actually almost slipped and realized I gotta be more careful when I'm making a stupid mistake over a little fear. A fear of something I can't even see, so it's probably nothing. I wish it was nothing. Anyways, I went back to my camp. Made it back before sundown. That was good. And I guess someone does live in the area and they're playing a sick joke, or a bear attack. Is there a bear in the... I'm starting to get confused now, because as soon as I got back to my camp, everything was destroyed. My tent was destroyed, the fire pit was destroyed, everything. All my clothes torn up. They weren't just taken out of the bag, but they were torn up. That's why I think it was a bear. But then I seen behind the torn up tent something on the ground. It looked like It was made in red paint, a face of a monster or something. It was so weird, and then I started thinking, so this is some kind of weird prank and someone lives out here. They're obviously just messing with me. But why would they do this? This is a horrible, mean, cruel prank. You know, these clothes cost money, this tent costs money. But then realizing where he was at, in the middle of the jungle, where most inhabit, it's like, okay, maybe they can't take jokes pretty far out here, and it being normal. He stared at the monster face painted on the dirt floor for a little bit longer, trying to understand what he was looking at, but he couldn't figure it out. So, fixed up his tent, and then he thought about it. He's like, I got a flare, but what if there's more than one person? Then I'm in trouble. But I really want to stay so I can check out the other side of the pyramid. I don't want to go and come back another time. I'm already here. Yeah, he thought, screw it. He fixed up his tent, now melancholy and pretty bummed out because all his stuff is pretty much, most of his stuff's ruined, except the stuff he took along with him on the journey. And started up the fire, and then he was holding his flare gun, acting as if it was a real gun with unlimited bullets. He's like, as long as they don't know what this is, I can act like it is whatever I want it to be. And we'll see who's pranking who. He started getting tired, and then decided to go lay down. So, this guy, he was fired up now. He was deciding, you know what? I'm not even gonna sleep in a tent tonight. I'm gonna sleep out here by the fire, and I dare that person to come back. He wanted them to come back. He was so angry. Little did he know that that was probably the worst idea that he'd made there. That night when he fell asleep peacefully, like no problem at all, like nothing was out there. Which was a little bit weird and off, but still, he thought, well, maybe they'd done their prank and they're satisfied, whatever. They got a spook out of me. They won. So as he fell asleep, as a heavy sleeper, that's when these tribal men entered his campsite, wondering why he would just go sleep out in the open like that, but at the same time not caring, because they got one thing on their mind. They just got a sacrifice, and now they don't have to sacrifice one from their village. So, win for them. They zipped the man up in his sleeping bag, which woke him up, and he couldn't. They had him tied up in his sleeping bag, like dragging him that way, so he couldn't really shoot off his flare gun. He tried his best to break out of that sleeping bag, but it was an expensive sleeping bag, and it's probably why they couldn't tore it up like his clothes, honestly, because it was just that heavy duty. So they're dragging this guy, dragging him through the woods, and he's yelling, "Hey, let me out! Hey, this ain't funny anymore! Quit it!" You know? Tribal people are just speaking in their language, their ancient language, and he realizes that he's not gonna be able to get a word because he'd never heard any language like this before. Now, remind you, he traveled around the world. He heard a lot of languages, but nothing like this. It wasn't even like some piglets where they speak backwards. It was so new to him. So, and finally, the dragging stops, and he realized that because the moving stops and he stops getting dragged around. Now he's hurt though, because after all that dragging around in that a sleeping bag, of course, he was bumping around on rocks and stuff. He's hurt. He's damaged. And when they open up the sleeping bag, tearing it open from the zipper, only able to break the zipper, he comes out aiming the flare gun, but holding his arm because his arm's hurt. He's limping on one leg, bent a knee in. He's very hurt. And right away, the tribal people just hit him in the back of the head with a rock, knocking him out cold. He wakes up again. Everything's blurry now because he kind of unconscious. He got concussed. That's what it is. He got a concussion. And he's realizing as he's looking up and only able to move his head around because he's tied to a table that he's out by the pyramid again. And most of his clothes are gone, only underwear. And he has cuts on his body, the same monster symbol that he's seen in his camp that was on his chest, but cut it into him. That's when he realized that they were carrying him on this flat board around the pyramid, going around it. And in his head, now he's becoming delusional and realizing he can't fight anymore. He's just going to have to accept whatever happens. So he says, jokingly and delusionally, "Alright everyone, I got to see around the pyramid. Now let me go home." Of course, they ignored him. They just kept going around the pyramid until they finally came to the stairs again, going around the complete pyramid. As they went around the pyramid, he was looking at it and he realized on one side of the pyramid there's a giant hole. And that's the thing that intrigued him, even though, his life was in jeopardy. It was that hole, like a cave hole. He never seen a cave hole on a pyramid before. See, the way pyramids are made is the only time where you would see that is if they were putting stuff inside when it's first made, or you'd see at the top of the pyramid where they can drop things down into, like a giant tomb. So to see that was weird. And he realized it was a big hole. And there's this smoke coming from the hole, just like fog, just drifting away from the hole. They started climbing up the hill, or climbing up the pyramid with them. And this part started putting fear into him, because the higher they got, his fear of heights started kicking in. And once that started happening, he started hearing the breathing again. Very heavily, very hard. It was like it was right behind him again. And when he was looking at the tribal people's faces, he realized once the breathing started, they all looked scared, very scared. They got him to the top of the pyramid. That breathing never stopped. It's like once he started becoming scared of heights, that breathing started, and he just kept going harder and harder and faster. They got him to the top, laid him on the floor of the top of the pyramid, and he'd been up there before, but this time it was shaking, like a little vibration at first, and then it became more vibration, like something big was coming closer and closer to him. And then when he looked over to the side, he started seeing this giant black lion-like thing peer its head over the edge of the pyramid side, crawling up toward him. Every time it took a step closer to him, it just shook the ground with every step. Doof, doof, doof. It slowly walked to him. He realized this thing had red eyes. This thing was no animal at all. This was no lion. This had a lion's head, but had like some kind of lizard, bearded lizard dragon's body, and a tail that a pigtail. This thing was straight out of the things that you would see written on the pyramid's walls, but more monster-like. And that's when it ate the man. Ate the man, and that's when the tribal people, they watched from the bottom of the pyramid, because as soon as they put the man down, they got off that pyramid. They knew that too. They knew what would happen, and they knew what would happen if they didn't feed that monster. It would attack their village, and they cannot stop that monster. So every year, they sacrifice one soul to that monster and get a good year for it. If they don't sacrifice a body to a monster in 1 year, then that village, the tribe, it has to pay. It pays in blood, torment, and most of all, their fear. So that was the story, a breather. I hope you all enjoyed that one. That was just the second story. Oh Lord, crap. That was really good, I thought. Honestly, I was getting into the story as I told the story. That's how you know it's a good story. Um, I hope you all enjoyed that one. Well, now let's move on to the final story here. The story is called Shuttle 95. I'm an astronaut. The year is 3022. Now, it's a lot different than it was back then. Back then when we first started doing this astronaut stuff, that's for sure. 1,000 years ago. When we used to just explore our galaxy. Now, we explore others' galaxies. And when I say others, I mean others. Like we're not the only ones out there, out here, out wherever it is we are. Eventually we all start to realize that. You know, we might be different from different galaxies, but we all realize, where is there more out there? Everyone always thinks the same, it seems like. Especially now that the time has passed. I know my ancestors, like the ones that landed on the moon first, in the first galaxy, the first moon. I'm very proud of them for doing that, because without that first step, that was a large step to where I am today. Now traveling throughout space for up to 5 years in planet years. See, with our technology we got now, we can travel, in 5 years we can travel like with 10 years worth of traveling, because we got the technology for it. With our space shuttles, they can go that long. We got freezing devices, tubes that we can lay in and sleep. It's great. It really is. It's like playing life in autopilot mode. Being the best pilot. That's like what I call it. Anyways. We still have missions. Of course, we still want to discover more and more. But at the same time, there's a lot more people that travel space for the fun of it, and not for the missions. Not to experience or discover new, but to go to the places that we know is good and we discovered that was good. To enjoy it for themselves. Well, that being said, we never really experienced what we did eventually. Even though I'm really thankful for those first astronauts taking that giant leap for us, can't help but feel, and the fact that, I am where I am today as an astronaut in the future, in the year 3000, or like, at least future I'm trying to get this out to. I know this is going to be heard back then, because we should have thought about galaxy wars more. Like I began the story, we all want the same thing a lot of the time. So, which means we all kind of think alike when it comes down to it. No matter what planet you're from, the leaders all have the same agenda, it feels like. And that's why we should have seen it coming when there was a galaxy war. Our galaxy was not prepared at all for this. You see, our galaxy was a peaceful one, the one that was like a gas station stop for all the other galaxies that were going through. We made it entertaining for people and things to stop by and enjoy what we had to offer. At the same time, we made it where there was nothing really to steal from us, We didn't go around playing pirate, taking from other planets, trying to make ours the biggest galaxy. So we can be just that. Well, our galaxy was not prepared, especially the fact that most most our people from our galaxy was spread out. They were exploring the other galaxies at the time we were attacked. Once we lost our first line of defense, it was pretty much over for us. The galaxy got took over instantly. I remember the last call I had with my lieutenant. It was so terrifying, honestly. It was like something that you would see in a propaganda film or something. This is how it went. They called me. It woke me up from the deep sleep chamber, which was no problem. I loved getting word back from our planet, but not like this. Instantly, the lieutenant was freaking out. Listen, listen. Mayday on the mission. Forget about the mission. You're going to have to find safety. Find safety and get help. Find whichever side's going to help and join that side. See, our galaxy was a bit clueless because even though we were in the future and we knew a lot more, we were still being held in the dark with a lot of information. So we couldn't tell who wanted what really. Only smart people and higher ups really knew that. So we couldn't tell which galaxies were on our side. I wish we could though, because those galaxies that we thought were safe for the people to travel to, and that were at the time, instantly became either enslaved or killed on the spot. My lieutenant was pushed out of the way after he had his head cut off in front of me on the video call. And that's when I saw that these aliens that were taking over my planet, they had these jumpsuits on. These jumpsuits that were only worn by this one galaxy. This galaxy that was a prison galaxy, we called it. It was because it housed the worst of the worst, basically. They'd send monsters to this prison. People that can't. Voids, basically, were their best way to describe it for modern time back then. Anyways, so I realized these were escaped convicts, basically, alien convicts. But they were the worst of the worst, monsters. And if they were taking over the planet, there's no doubt my planet was going to be destroyed within a week. Because that's why they were in that prison to begin with. Those those same those same monsters were destroying planets, peaceful ones like mine, for no reason at all, just to ruin the galaxies and cause wars amongst the galaxies. See, once the prisoners from the prison galaxy escaped, it instantly started a war, instantly, because they kind of they were already arguing between the galaxies if the prison galaxy was even strong enough to house them, if they should either just kill the monsters or keep them for science experiments, stuff like that, to try to become stronger from. So that's what started the galaxy wars. And I'm going up so far right now. See, the mission I was on was a mission to go to one of the farthest planets that we know that had oxygen, water, plant life. We wanted to go see if there was anything living and big enough to be a humanoid on the planet. Since I was already on that way and my galaxy was destroyed, I figured I had no other option. And now the galaxies were going at war. There was on the there was TV in space. Now there's TV in space now. So we had news about basically terrorist happenings but with aliens. It was crazy. On a mass scale, the massive scale you can think of. It was too scary to go back, honestly. I did not want to go on a planet where they'd enslave me or kill me. And honestly, I didn't want to go on a planet that wasn't ready, that had a good line of defense, because that's how it was basically. Most of those planets did the same as our galaxy, had a had them their organisms basically expand, go evolve elsewhere. But boy, that was a bad idea. I got another 5 years to make it to this planet. That's if I'm not captured by any lieutenant of any other galaxy and destroyed on the spot. I'm seeing on the news now, as I'm falling back to sleep, spaceships are getting shot down, left and right. There's so much debris in space that's causing planets to basically some to explode from all the debris. Debris from a broken spaceship shot down in a galaxy war. Man, I hope that don't happen to me. Hope I make it. So, the space astronaut went back in his sleeping chamber, went back to sleep. And that's where the story ends. That was Shuttle 95. Hope you all enjoyed that. That was our 3 scary stories that I promised you all. And yeah, check it out. The first story, we went to an Amish town. The second story, a tribe in the jungle. The third story, space in the future. You know, these are some classic. These are gonna become gems. I know it. Hope you all love it, the same as I much love to make them for you. Stay awesome, people. Hey everyone. Well, ready for the final story? Final story for the night. I mean, wow. We had an hour worth of stories already told. 3 stories wasn't enough for you? Well, don't worry. it wouldn't be enough for me either. I'm a horror fan. I'm sure you are too. That's why you're still here. This final story is called It Lived in the Walls. This story takes place in modern time, like today, and it evolves around American walls, American house-made walls. See, we never really thought about it, but if there was a real good reason to have either brick walls or wooden walls, since wooden walls looked better and kept us cozy enough, we went with wooden walls. Other people stuck with brick walls, but they never shared why. Reason why is what when we found out later on as bugs started to evolve, becoming more smart, more bigger, more different looking. Stuff we weren't prepared for really too quickly. Happened too quick. Too much too quick. And when we realized it was coming from inside our walls, it freaked us out. You see, in most American-made homes, the walls, the way they're made, they have about half a foot worth of distance between the drywall and the hardwood in the house. So with that distance, when you put it all together, it could actually end up making another room if you got a big enough house. And for insects, it makes up a whole world. A whole world. Because that's a part of the house you can't clean. That's a part that no matter what, either way, there was no way around this. When they started to invade the insects from the walls, it was already too late. In fact, as I'm writing this last message, just remember, it's better to have brick walls than it is wooden walls. And that's our final story of the night. See, I took it from, like the other stories, from unknown places. What's a better unknown place than the unknown place and what's right next to our bed? Inside the walls. These are some good stories, I think. A good gem to save for any time in Halloween. So stay awesome, people. I hope you enjoyed those spooky stories. And later.